Wish TV. All Indiana Politics
is your premier source for Indiana politics.
Focusing on issues that matter to you.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage, exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders, expert analysis on critical legislation. From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Your day moves fast. Your news should too. That's why there's a new and improved Wish TV app, bringing you more local news, breaking alerts, live streaming, weather forecasts, radar, and Indiana sports, all in one place. Customize your news feed to see the stories that matter most to you and get the information you need when you need it. Download the new and improved Wish TV app today on iOS or Android and take News 8 with you everywhere. Central Indiana. Wish TV is now live on YouTube TV and Hulu Live, offering more hours of local programming than any other station. Search for Wish TV or look for CW8 on both YouTube TV and Hulu Live to find us. Watch local news, sports, and lifestyle shows live from Wish TV. You can still catch Wish TV free over the air or stream it live on wishtv.com and on the free Wish TV mobile apps. Wish TV, available in more places for the latest news, weather, and sports. Now, from your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. It's possibly the most anticipated state party convention in years. Embattled Secretary of State Diego Morales facing three challengers at Saturday's Republican Party convention. Knox County Clerk David Shelton has been courting delegates for months now in an effort to unseat Morales. Conservative activist and former candidate for governor Jamie Reitenour joined the race earlier this year. And last month, Max Engling jumped in at the last minute. He's a longtime staffer for Senator Jim Banks. We invited all four candidates to appear on this program. Engling and Reitenour both agreed to interviews with our Garrett Berquist. Shelton turned down our request, and Morales did not respond to multiple requests. We begin with Engling.
And joining us now is Max Engling, one of the four Republican candidates for Secretary of State. Max, thank you for coming in today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Garrett. It's great to be here.
Why are you running for Secretary of State?
So I love the state of Indiana. We've got 4 kids. I'm married, and I want to make sure that what we've built here remains and that we keep our elections secure and that we move forward in a positive direction.
You came into this race very suddenly. How did that come about?
There was an undercurrent of delegates that came to me directly and said, we don't like where we're headed. We want to make sure that we have someone that we can vote for that gives us confidence, not only in the office, but also in the ability to win in the fall. And so that kept happening. And then as that rose to the top, there was support from folks higher up as well. And they said, let's run together. Let's make sure that we have someone that can win in the fall and take this coalition that's been built between the grassroots and the party leadership to say, let's move forward and win in the fall against who we now know as a candidate on the Democratic side.
You've called for U.S. citizen-only voting. A federal law has already prohibited non-citizens from voting for a long time, and we already have a photo ID law in Indiana, so what would you do differently?
Absolutely, but some folks in this race have said that it's not a very big issue. It doesn't happen a whole lot. Now, I'll give credit to the Secretary of State here where they found 160-some folks that had registered to vote illegally. But what we need to do is be much better proactively about limiting the folks that can be registered to vote illegally. We don't want that at all. It's okay to come on the backside and say we're going to prosecute folks that have voted illegally, but we need to be better proactively to solve for that. And part of it is around when someone gets their license, if they don't register to vote, and then later they apply to register to vote, and they attest that, yes, I can legally do this. It's illegal to do that, but they have found folks that will go in and after the fact register to vote, and we have to do something more to make sure that's not going to happen. For instance, if you look at your license, you could put a note on there that says, this person is here legally, but not a citizen. And if you do that, that'll help the folks that are working the polls to make sure that this person is not voting.
Why do you want to switch to a closed primary?
I don't think it's asking too much for Republicans to vote in Republican primaries and Democrats to vote in Democratic primaries so that they can select the best candidate for their district and then put that person forward in the general election to determine who's the best person to win in this district. There's a lot of states that do this, including states like the state of Florida that have very successfully implemented this. It hasn't driven down voter turnout. In fact, it gives people more confidence that the candidate that they prefer is going to win in their primaries and face off in the general election.
Should Indiana require hand-marked paper ballots for all elections?
The most important thing there to me is that we do have a paper audit trail. So right now there's the machines, if you look at a VVPAT machine, you make your markers on the screen, but then before you're done, there's a paper tape that runs next to it that says, this is who you voted for, and you confirm that yourself, and then that paper tape is recorded. So I think it's extremely important that we have a paper auditable record of your vote, each and every vote, to make sure if there is ever an issue, or if you need to go in and do an actual recount, that you have that auditable trail.
You said you would crack down on shell companies as Secretary of State. How would you go about doing that, and how big of a problem do you believe it is right now?
It's very important. So I think a lot of folks have seen around the state where these shell trucking companies have created identical LLCs in one case there were 14 in one home address. And what they do is they rack up all these violations from drivers. They're either pulling too heavy of a load, they're driving too long, or other issues, challenges with their CDL. And then instead of dealing with that and paying the repercussions of having drivers that shouldn't be on in this LLC, they instead discard that LLC, create a new shell company, move those drivers back over, and continue to put dangerous drivers on the road with Hoosiers. Now, the federal issues can't be solved by the Secretary of State. However, the Secretary of State has to do their job in the Business Registration Office of seeing that incoming data, compile that data, and then make sure that if there are anomalies, like 14 identical LLCs in one home address, that you package that and hand it to either the AG or local entities to further investigate.
How would you approach business licensing?
So one, the state of Indiana has to be a very straightforward state for registering a small business. You want to make sure that we're open to entrepreneurs starting a business. I've filed a small business myself with the Secretary of State's office and hiring Hoosiers. And I believe right now we do have a straightforward process. However, it also needs to be less burdensome as you move forward into the process. So if you're submitting information back for your BOI, or you're submitting more information as you continue to update your registration, you already submit so much of that information to the state of Indiana. You shouldn't be redundantly doing that with the Secretary of State's office. Instead, certify, yes, this information is still correct, or certify the information I've already submitted to the state of Indiana is true in this instance also, and take the onerous part of government out of your life. Anything we can do to create more efficiency and pull the government out of your life is where we want to be as a Secretary of State's office.
Current Secretary of State Diego Morales has attracted controversy due to his overseas travel, hiring family members, several other issues within that office. How would you restore trust within that office?
It's very important to set the vision and the leadership from the top to say, we are going to lead with these conservative values, and know that you're going to put a staff in place around you that understands that vision, that runs the divisions very well, but also understands the role of the Secretary of State. And so from the top, you have to instill that confidence. And I've worked in many areas across my career where we've had to do that in the past. And the person with their name on the door sets the tone for the office. It's my responsibility to say, we're going to set a vision that includes what we're supposed to do in the office and the roles of the Secretary of State, and not a lot of the things that we've seen happening in the current Secretary of State's office.
All right, coming up, Jamie Reitenour explains why she believes delegates should choose her on Saturday. Welcome back. Jamie Reitenour is making her second run at statewide office this year. She ran for governor 2 years ago in the Republican primary. She tells Eric Garrett Berquist she wants to return the office, and Indiana's approach to elections to their constitutional basics.
Let's bring in Jamie Reitenour, one of the 4 Republicans running for Secretary of State. Jamie, thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, Garrett.
Why are you running for Secretary of State?
The Secretary of State office is a special office. My husband was the first to tell me that he felt that it was a real good fit. And then I began to do research on the office, and with my compliance background, being over a compliance real estate broker in California, 1,000+ loan officers, 5 different departments, 38 states. It's just right up my alley. And then as I began to study the position, a lot of Hoosiers came to me and said that they were originally helping out the current Secretary of State and that he had made them a lot of promises that he did not keep. And they wanted to know if I could come in and help. And so I looked at the things that he had ran on, which namely in 2022 it was paper ballots. Of course, now in 2026 it's $1 million, but slight change. But we've gone back to paper ballots and precincts and hand counting, and then really wanting to do more in the Secretary of State's office that's geared towards the state of Indiana, transparency. So we're excited about this.
So I want to get into a couple of those things. So you do want to require hand-marked paper ballots for all elections in Indiana?
Yes, absolutely. So we know that France does it. They've got 60 million plus people, and they hand count their ballots in France. And Indiana is definitely, we've got a little over 5,000 precincts. And when you look at the statistics, we've got like 60% are under 600 ballots, and then another 38 or so percent are under are between 600 and 1,200. And then when you've got the 2% range, you're looking at, that's the 1,200 to 1,800 ballots in that precinct. So there's really not a lot of ballots that are in that higher percentage. And we think Hoosiers can handle it. And we think being involved in your elections is good, and it's constitutional. It's less expensive. And when it comes to machines, the security you have to pay for those machines, it's millions and millions of dollars, and then there's still vulnerability. And so we are really bringing to the table what we believe Hoosiers voted for in 2022, and we think we're going to see a good response here in 2026.
Does requiring a hand count of all ballots, though, introduce the risk of human error?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's going to be error in any situation, but what we know is that there are multiple states that have already started walking down this path. And of course, we've done this in the not too far ago, so like 10 years ago or so, we were still doing this. But whenever you do the system in a way that provides the accountability, where you've got two counters there and one person watching, the error rate goes down. And we think Hoosiers can handle that, and we think that they will step up. And we also think the next generation is ready to do this. They want to be involved in politics. They want to make sure their voice is heard, and this is a great way to do that.
Where do you stand on early voting?
Early voting is interesting. So if you look at the statistics from 2018 and 2022, there was a 10% drop in the amount of people that showed up to vote. And so we didn't see an increase in voter activity due to early voting. And I really think that we're in Indiana, where there's already a low percentage of participation in our elections. And so we want to increase that participation. And I think following the Constitution, having it on one day really builds that momentum. And I think the state will respond well to that.
But if you get rid of early voting, doesn't that remove an option for people who either they're working on Election Day or maybe they get sick on Election Day, some kind of emergency comes up?
So the legislation that I run on is House Bill 1166. And when it comes to absentee voting, we do have the absentee voting that would be geared towards things that are absolutely necessary. But when it comes to just the early voting, kind of the window that we opened where people can just go when they want, we lean back into the Constitution and say it's supposed to be on one day. It's supposed to be a priority on one day where everybody in the Republic in the state of Indiana is participating. It drives that momentum. And you know what it also does? It keeps the news from framing elections. Because when there's early voting, the news likes to jump in and start reporting, this is how many people we've seen coming out. This is what we're seeing on the Democrat side. This is what we're seeing on the Republican side.
Current Secretary of State Diego Morales has attracted controversy due to his overseas travel, hiring family members, that sort of thing. How would you restore trust in that office? Right.
So I'm focused on Indiana, not India. And what I try to do is I try to remind everybody that whenever you focus on this state, you're on the ground, you're talking to clerks on the ground, right? Because they're going to be the ones that are closest to elections. And then you've got to make sure that you prioritize the needs that are in your department. I think it's very easy for people to become figureheads of these kinds of positions in government. And I'm not a figurehead, I'm an administrator. And so we are going to be hands-on. We're going to be having press conferences every Tuesday. And so I think what the people will find is a team that has a plan, that is communicating that plan to the state, and is being transparent why we do so.
a lot of the attention is on the Secretary of State's electoral responsibilities, but there are other responsibilities such as for business licensing. How would you approach that issue? What are some things you think need to be done there?
Sure. Well, there's been a little bit of communication going on social media about the concern. There's been some companies, some trucker companies that have kind of crossed the social media concern. And I would say that, you know, we have to be really careful in the Secretary of State's office because it is administrative. And so what we would do in situations where we are kind of concerned about business offices that may not be doing what they're supposed to is we'd be putting algorithms together, checking addresses. I think overall the administrative side could use more transparency, but we're looking forward to getting to know the people that are already working in the department, seeing what things they see on the ground, what things maybe they've wanted to go up the chain and see change but haven't yet, which is very common. And then we're looking to come out as a team and show Indiana unity and excel as a department.
All right, coming up, Indiana's best political team weighs the odds for the 4 candidates.
Don't let high golf rates drive you out of bounds. Save big with the Wish TV Great Golf Club card.
Central Indiana's largest golf club card membership is back for the 8th season with more courses than ever before. Save over 75% on tee times at 27 Central Indiana golf courses. All you need is the Wish TV Great Golf Club card. Cards are valid for the entire 2026 golf season.
Great courses, great savings. Score your Great Golf Club card today.
The opinions expressed by guests on this broadcast are solely of those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Circle City Broadcasting.
All right, welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in 2 members of Indiana's best political team, Republican Mario Masalamani and Democrat Lindsay Haight. Good to see you both. Mario, we'll begin with you. At this point, who, in your opinion, has the best chance at the convention?
I think the two probably front runners are Max Engling and Diego Morales. I think Diego Morales has been working this for years. He has run conventions before, and he still has, I think, a lot of love within the delegates. And so I think he is probably still the favorite, but I think Max Engling has a really good shot. We'll see, though, with 4 candidates and, you know, with the way the voting happens, with striking the last one down, who knows? You know, the things can change, and delegates lie.
Right. Lindsay, your take on that?
Yeah, well, can't disagree with you there. Having run a few delegate races myself, it is indeed a really up to the minute, on the floor even, are you learning dynamics that are ever changing as you're going into a race, a delegate race, and so a race for the seat for the party at the delegate level. So I don't envy you, having been there. I purposefully did not choose to be a delegate this year, so I didn't have to be involved in that this year at our party convention. But man, I do not envy you at all. You're going to have some game-changing moments, and I'm all aflutter, waiting to hear about it. My popcorn.
Yeah, pull the curtain back a little bit, Mario. Talk about strategy a little bit, and like for maybe people who aren't familiar or aren't aware, what is it like, and how many rounds are there?
So I believe that it'll go at least 2 or 3 rounds. You know, there's talk that somebody's going to have enough delegates, 50+1, to win this on the first ballot. I don't think that's the case, especially with 4 candidates, and they're all working extremely hard on this. You know, if somebody doesn't get the win in the first ballot, a lot of delegates will say, "I promise you my first vote." But after that, if it goes to a second ballot, you know, I'm going to change my vote or potentially change my vote. So that could happen where somebody has a large number of delegates, but they drop significantly because people have promised them the first vote, but are not guaranteeing them the second vote. Also, there will be, you know, people wanting to pick the winner, right? They want to be on the winning team. So after they look at the first ballot, if somebody has more votes than everyone else, then there's a good chance that people will start gravitating to that, so they can say, I was part of picking the winner on this convention.
Right. So, Lindsay, tell us a little bit about like the strength of the candidate, whoever wins, and also what that means for the party going forward.
Sure. Now, specifically for Secretary of State, absolutely this has meaning down the road, and that's because whomever wins on that ballot in November will have control of the decision making at the county level come election time election boards, etc. Won't go into the weeds right now, but yeah, that is a huge thing. You remember that we do still have some from when Destiny Wells won some of the counties in 2024. We had, or excuse me, 2022. We had a few of those counties still having Democrats in charge at the local level. So yeah, there are definitely downstream effects. I just think we'll have a lot to go through before we get there. And the convention after 2, I really hope it, just for the sake of the delegates who don't want to be there until 8 o'clock at night.
Sure, on a Saturday, right?
Right, exactly, that we don't have to have 4 or 5 ballots.
Less than 2 minutes left. So how does this affect Bo Bai, in your opinion, from a Democratic standpoint?
Well, I imagine it will probably affect more than just Bo. I imagine it will affect also Greg Ballard, who I hear has the signatures to be on the ballot. So I think this will be a huge, huge race in the fall. Everything is cracked up, is dependent on how this race cracks out in terms of the funding. Bo has so much funding coming in from many different sources, I'll say it nicely. And then you've also got a lot of money, obviously, will be dedicated to whomever the Republican person is as well. But you've also got a great candidate in Greg Ballard. So this will be a 3-way matchup of all. For the last 10 years, we've really seen this race specifically throw Indiana into a national
Mario,
picture.
just want to get you in here. 30 seconds left.
Sorry.
No, not a problem at all. So this is an interesting race because of the amount of money that's going to be spent on this. Bo Bai has, going to spend between $5 to $8 million. So the Republicans going to have to generate a lot of money. Whoever wins, we're going to be on that team. We're going to support them come November, and we're going to make sure that they win and cross the finish line.
Who has the best shot?
I think that there's a couple people. Anyone's better than Bo Bai. And I think that whoever wins in convention, we're going to support them, and we're going to show that they're more qualified than Bo Bai, who doesn't even know that the Colts are a team from Indiana, or the Pacers.
We'll leave it there.
That's why he wears a shirt to remind himself.
It's going to be a toss-up. Let's be honest.
The opinions expressed by guests on this broadcast are solely of those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Circle City Broadcasting.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do anyway. Yeah, it's cooler in here anyway than it is in the newsroom. Yeah. See you guys.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.